Before you scroll. Listen carefully, she had been bleeding for 12 years, not 12 days. Not 12 months, 12 long years, 12 years of pain, 12 years of isolation, 12 years of praying. And hearing nothing, and one day, she decided, she didn't need a speech, she didn't need attention, she only needed one touch. For 12 long years, she suffered in silence. The sickness drained her strength little by little, like a slow leak that no one could see but she could feel every single day. What began as a medical problem became a life sentence. The bleeding would not stop. It followed her through every sunrise and every sleepless night. There was no break. No relief. Just constant weakness and quiet despair. She did what anyone would do. She sought help. Doctor after doctor examined her. Treatment after treatment was attempted. She spent everything she had, savings, possessions, security, chasing hope in the form of medicine. But instead of improving, her condition worsened. The very people who promised healing left her poorer and more broken than before. In that culture, her illness was more than physical. It was social. According to the law, her condition made her ceremonially unclean. That meant she could not participate fully in society. She could not freely touch others. She could not enter certain public spaces without consequence. Her sickness isolated her from community, worship, and normal life. Imagine the loneliness. Watching others laugh, gather, and celebrate while you stand at a distance. Imagine craving a simple embrace but knowing your touch would be unwelcome. The disease stole her strength, but the isolation stole her dignity. She began to feel invisible. Forgotten. Like her life had paused while everyone else continued forward. 12 years is long enough for hope to fade. Long enough for people to stop asking how you are. Long enough to believe nothing will ever change. She had probably prayed countless times. She had probably cried in secret, asking God why her body would not heal. The silence must have felt heavy. Like heaven itself was quiet, but then one day, she heard something that stirred her soul. Jesus was coming through town. Stories spread quickly, blind eyes opening, crippled legs strengthening, demons fleeing at a word. People whispered about miracles. About compassion. About authority unlike anything they had seen before. Hope flickered again inside her chest. But doubt followed immediately. What if I am too unclean? She might have thought. What if I am not worthy? What if he ignores me like everyone else? Fear is loud when you've been disappointed for years. But faith can be louder when desperation pushes it. The crowd was enormous. People surrounded Jesus from every side. The noise was overwhelming. Bodies pressed together. Voices shouted. Dust filled the air. For someone weak and fragile, that kind of crowd was intimidating. But she knew this might be her only chance. She made a decision, not publicly, not dramatically, but privately within her heart. If I can just touch his garment, she told herself, I will be healed. She did not need a stage. She did not need a microphone. She did not need attention. She believed that even the edge of his robe carried enough power. Slowly, she pushed through the crowd. Every step likely drained what little strength she had left. Every accidental bump from strangers could have knocked her down. But desperation fueled her courage. She was tired of surviving. She was tired of hiding. She was tired of 12 years of silence. Her heart must have been racing. Not only because of weakness, but because of risk. If someone recognized her condition, she could be publicly shamed. She could be pushed away. She could be humiliated in front of everyone. Yet she kept moving forward. When you've suffered long enough, fear loses its grip. Then it happened. She reached forward. Her fingers brushed the edge of his garment. Just fabric. Just a small touch. But in that instant, something shifted. The bleeding stopped. The weakness lifted. Strength flowed back into her body like light breaking through darkness. 12 years ended in a moment. No long process. No dramatic ritual. Just faith meeting power. Just desperation touching divinity. The miracle was immediate. But what happened next surprised everyone. Jesus stopped walking. In the middle of the pressing crowd, he paused and asked, "Who touched me?" The disciples were confused. "Master, the crowd is pressing all around you," they said. Many people were touching him. But not like this. Jesus knew power had gone out from him. This was not accidental. It was activated by faith. Someone had reached beyond curiosity. Someone had reached with belief. The crowd fell silent for a moment when Jesus asked the question. "Who touched me?" It wasn't asked in anger. It wasn't asked in frustration. It was asked with intention. He knew what had happened. He felt the power leave him. But he wanted more than a hidden miracle. He wanted a revealed testimony. There is something powerful about bringing faith into the light. She froze. Her heart pounded harder than it had when she pushed through the crowd. The miracle had already happened. She could have slipped away quietly. She could have disappeared into the background with her healing. But now Jesus was looking. Searching. Calling out. And she knew he was speaking about her. Fear tried to rise again. Not fear of sickness this time, but fear of exposure. For 12 years she had hidden her condition. For 12 years she avoided attention. Now she was being pulled into the center of it. Sometimes healing requires courage beyond the miracle itself. Trembling, she stepped forward. Not confidently. Not proudly. But honestly. She fell at his feet and told him the whole truth. She explained the suffering. The years. The doctors. The money spent. The loneliness. The silent tears. She poured out everything she had endured. The crowd listened. Some may have been shocked. Some may have judged. But Jesus did not interrupt her. He let her speak. He let her story be heard. Because what she carried for 12 years deserved to be acknowledged. Then he said something that changed more than her body. He said, "Daughter, your faith has made you well. Go in peace." Notice that word, daughter. Not woman. Not unclean. Not problem. Daughter. In one sentence, he restored her identity along with her health. For 12 years, society labeled her by her condition. Sick. Unclean. Untouchable. But Jesus labeled her by relationship. Daughter. Healing was not just physical. It was relational. He didn't only stop the bleeding. He restored belonging. Imagine how those words must have felt. After years of isolation, to be publicly acknowledged. After years of shame, to be publicly affirmed. After years of silence, to be spoken to with compassion. Sometimes the greatest miracle is not the cure, it is the connection. Jesus could have allowed her to leave quietly healed. But he stopped everything for her. In the middle of an urgent crowd. In the middle of other demands. He paused. Because to him, she was not an interruption. She was important. That is the heart of the story. In a sea of people, he noticed one desperate touch. In a crowd full of noise, he recognized one act of faith. Faith does not have to be loud to be powerful. It only has to be sincere. The difference between the crowd and the woman was not proximity. Many people were close to Jesus. Many people brushed against him. But only one touched him with expectation. Only one reached with belief. You can be near something powerful and never receive from it. The crowd was around him. She believed in him. That belief made the difference. Faith activates what curiosity cannot. 12 years of pain ended because she refused to give up completely. Even when hope was fragile, she protected it. Even when disappointment was loud, she moved forward anyway. Sometimes breakthrough is one courageous step away. She didn't wait for someone to escort her. She didn't wait for a perfect moment. She moved when opportunity appeared. Faith is not passive. It moves. Even when it shakes. Even when it trembles, there is something beautiful about the simplicity of her miracle. No grand ceremony. No long speech. No dramatic display. Just a touch. Sometimes what changes everything is smaller than we expect. For years, she likely felt forgotten by heaven. But in one moment, she realized something powerful: heaven had not ignored her. The timing was precise. Not early. Not late. Perfect. Her suffering was long, but her healing was instant. That contrast teaches something important. Just because pain lasts long does not mean breakthrough will take equally long. God can restore in a moment what life damaged over years. The crowd that once would have avoided her now saw her differently. The shame that defined her no longer had authority. She walked away not just healed, but free. Think about this: she did not ask for attention, yet Jesus gave it to her. She tried to remain hidden. Yet he brought her forward. Why? Because hidden faith deserves public affirmation. Her story would be told for generations. Not because of her sickness, but because of her faith. Pain may introduce you, but faith defines you. Maybe the reason her miracle was delayed for 12 years was because her story needed to reach further than her lifetime. Sometimes your waiting season is not only about you. It is about the testimony that will strengthen others. The years of suffering built something inside her. Resilience. Humility. Depth. When healing finally came, she understood its value deeply. Quick blessings are often taken lightly. Hard-earned miracles are treasured. Jesus did not shame her for touching him. He did not rebuke her desperation. He honored it. God does not reject broken faith. He responds to honest faith. If she had surrendered in the 11th year, her story would have ended quietly, forgotten by history. No one would have known her name. No one would have known her struggle. But endurance has a way of positioning you for moments that change everything. 12 years felt unbearable, but each year shaped the intensity of her faith. Sometimes prolonged suffering deepens belief instead of destroying it. Her miracle was not random. It was not luck. It was not coincidence. It was the meeting point between desperation and belief. She had reached the point where disappointment no longer scared her. She had nothing left to lose. And when fear loses its power, faith becomes fearless. That fearless faith is what pushed her hand forward through the crowd. Consider the courage it took to step into a place where she technically did not belong. The law said she was unclean. The crowd might have rejected her if they knew. But faith does not always wait for permission. Sometimes faith steps forward when everything says step back. That decision, that single movement toward Jesus, separated her from remaining a victim of her condition. Jesus did not allow her healing to remain anonymous because he wanted to restore more than her body. If she had slipped away quietly, people might still have seen her as unclean. But by calling her forward and publicly acknowledging her faith, he restored her reputation. Her healing was not hidden. It was validated. When he said, "Daughter," he erased 12 years of shame in a single word. Identity matters more than illness. Relationship matters more than ritual. That word reintroduced her to society not as a problem, but as family. She was no longer defined by weakness. She was defined by belonging. There is something powerful about the fact that Jesus stopped for her while on his way to heal someone else. He was not rushed. He was not distracted. He was not irritated by interruption. Divine compassion does not operate on human urgency. Even in the middle of important assignments, he made space for one suffering woman. The crowd that once would have avoided her now witnessed her transformation. The whispers that once labeled her were silenced. Her story shifted from isolation to inspiration. The same crowd that pressed physically against Jesus now saw what true spiritual pressing looked like. Her healing also proved something eternal: power flows where faith reaches. Many people touched Jesus that day. But only one touched him with expectation. There is a difference between being near something holy and believing in it deeply. 12 years of suffering did not disqualify her. They positioned her. Every tear, every doctor visit, every lonely night led to that one defining moment. Sometimes what feels like wasted years are actually preparation years. Her story teaches that God does not measure time the way we do. 12 years felt endless to her. But from heaven's perspective, the timing was precise. Healing came at the exact moment her faith was ready to act. If you look closely, the greatest miracle was not only the stopped bleeding. It was the restored dignity. It was the renewed identity. It was the peace she walked away with. Physical healing can be temporary. But restored identity changes a lifetime. So if you feel like you've been suffering too long, if you feel unseen in the crowd, if you feel like your prayers have gone unanswered for years, remember her story. You may not need a stage, you may not need recognition, you may only need one courageous act of faith, one step forward. One reach beyond fear, one touch of belief, because sometimes, 12 years of silence, can end in a single moment, when faith finally reaches forward.